My name is Thomas Callahan, and I'm 71 years old. Picture this. It's Thanksgiving dinner. The air thick with the smell of roasted turkey and fresh-baked pies. Laughter echoing around the table where my three grandchildren are giggling over their plates. Their little faces lit up by the warm glow of the candles. But then my daughter-in-law Brooke leans forward, her smile as polished as the silverware, and says, right there in front of everyone, that space is limited. This year at the cabin up at Lake Tahoe, it's just going to be the core family, plus her parents. She says it so sweetly, like she's explaining to a child why they can't have another cookie, making it sound like a favor that an old man like me shouldn't expect to crash their perfect little getaway in the house I built with my own two hands decades ago. My son Daniel, he just stares down at his mashed potatoes, mashing them around with his fork like they're the most fascinating thing in the world, not once meeting my eyes. I nod once, force a small smile, and say I understand. Then I get up, grab my coat, and drive my old 12-year-old Tacoma back home through the crisp autumn night, the headlights cutting through the fog rolling off the lake. But that night, sitting in my quiet trailer with a cup of black coffee cooling in my hands, I make a decision. I pick up the phone and transfer the remaining $1.87 million balance of that lake house mortgage into a demand note held by Callahan Timber Holdings, the company they've always thought was just a small family sawmill scraping by on thin margins. They never even asked why the monthly payments dropped so suddenly from $8,900 to $4,200 a couple years back. They just assumed the bank was being nice. Maybe some holiday miracle or a clerical error in their favor. They never wondered who really owns those logging leases on 40,000 acres of towering ponderosa pines that hug the shores of the lake like a green blanket. They figured the timber guys up north just had a soft spot for Daniel, letting him use the access roads for free. And they sure as hell never questioned why I still drive that same beat-up Tacoma with the dented fender from that time I backed into a stump 20 years ago, or the gun rack in the back window that's been empty since I stopped hunting. No, they assumed I was broke. Just a worn-out old-timer living on scraps from my pension. Too stubborn or too poor to upgrade my life. 3 weeks drag by, and then my phone buzzes with a text from Brooke. It's a photo of the whole group up there at the cabin. Smiling wide on the deck I stained myself one summer long ago. Her parents are decked out in matching LL Bean vests, looking like they stepped out of a catalog. The kids bundled up in shiny new Patagonia puffers that probably cost a fortune, their cheeks rosy from the cold mountain air. Daniel's in the back, his eyes hollow and tired, like he's carrying the weight of the world. The caption reads, "Wish you could have been here, Grandpa? Next year maybe," with a little red heart emoji tacked on the end. I stare at that picture for a long minute, feeling the sting of it sink in deep. Then I set the phone down without replying. Instead, I call my attorney, a sharp-minded fellow who's been with me through thicker timber deals than most folks can imagine, and I tell him to exercise the due-on-demand clause. Effective December 26th. Full balance due in 30 days. No extensions. No negotiations. Just cold, hard facts on paper. Christmas morning hits like a quiet storm. The kind where the snow falls soft but piles up fast. My phone rings at 7:14 a.m., shattering the silence of my trailer. It's Daniel, his voice cracking on the very first word, like he's been up all night pacing. "Dad," he says, "there's a letter. Certified mail, from some company called Callahan Timber Holdings. They say they own the mortgage now, and they want $1.87 million by the end of January. Dad, we don't have that kind of money. We'll lose the cabin. The kids, they just got new skis for Christmas. They're so excited." I let the silence stretch out between us, long and heavy, hearing his breath hitch on the other end of the line. Then I say, very quietly, so he has to strain to hear it, "You told me the cabin was only for core family this year." He starts crying then, big, heaving sobs that make him sound like the boy he used to be, not the grown man he's become. "Dad, please," he begs. I didn't mean it like that. Brooke said it would be easier, with her folks coming in all." I know what Brooke said. I reply, my voice steady as the pines outside my window. And I hang up, the click of the phone echoing in the empty room. Later that afternoon, as I'm sitting by the fire nursing another cup of coffee, the phone rings again. This time it's Brooke. And she's not crying, she's screaming. Her voice sharp and furious like a winter wind whipping through the trees. She accuses me of revenge, of being cruel, of hating my own grandchildren for God's sake. How could I do this to them, to the family? Over something as small as a holiday mix-up? I listen until she runs out of breath, her words tumbling over each other in a rush of anger and desperation. Then I speak, calm and clear. Brooke, I say, you've spent the last for years telling anyone who would listen that I'm a burden, that I'm cheap, that I embarrass Daniel in front of your fancy country club, friends because I won't shell out for the right labels or the latest gadgets. You even told my grandchildren, my own flesh and blood, that Grandpa can't afford to fix the dock anymore, so they shouldn't bother asking me to take them fishing like we used to every summer. There's a long silence on her end, heavy with the truth of it all. You wanted the cabin without the old man attached to it. I continue. Congratulations. You've got your wish. And with that, I hang up again, the fire crackling softly as if in agreement. That night, as the stars wheel overhead in the clear mountain sky, there's a knock on my trailer door. I open it to find Daniel standing there alone. No wife in tow, no excuses ready on his lips. Just him, red-eyed and hollow-cheeked, clutching that demand letter like it's a death certificate for everything he thought he had. Dad, he whispers, I'm sorry. I should have stood up for you. I should have said something that day at dinner and all the days before. I cut him off, not harshly but firm, like pruning a branch that's grown too wild. You had 4 years to stand up, Daniel. 4 long years of watching her chip away at me, and you chose every single time not to. He sinks down onto the steps then, his shoulders slumping like the weight of it all is too much to bear. What do I do now? He asks, his voice small and lost in the dark. I look out at the dark highway stretching away into the night, the occasional headlights flashing by like distant memories. You go home and tell your wife the truth, I say. Tell her who really owns those timber leases around the lake, the ones that keep the whole operation afloat. Tell her the man she called cheap has been subsidizing her fancy lifestyle for 6 years straight, quietly, without a word of thanks. Tell her the Tacoma she laughs at, with its dents and its history, paid cash for the entire place she's about to lose. He stares up at me, his eyes wide in the dim light spilling from the door. You own the leases, he stammers, like the words don't quite fit in his mouth. Always have, I reply simply. He starts sobbing again then, deep, wrenching sounds that echo off the trailer walls. But I don't hug him. I don't tell him it'll all be okay in the end. I just say, quiet and final, you picked your family, Daniel. Now live with the one you chose. And as he's still sitting there on my steps, head buried in his hands, the sobs shaking his frame, I close the door softly, the latch clicking into place like the end of a chapter. If you've ever felt that burning sting of being pushed aside by the people who should have your back, if you've ever bitten your tongue while someone you love lets you down again and again, then stick around because this story is going to hit you right in the gut. It's about family, betrayal, and the kind of quiet justice that sneaks up when you least expect it. Hit that like button if you're already rooting for Thomas. Subscribe for more tales of sweet, satisfying revenge straight from the heart of real life. And let's dive deeper into how it all unfolded. You won't want to miss a second. Now, let's rewind a bit to really understand where this all started. It wasn't just one Thanksgiving snub that lit the fuse. No, this had been building for years, like a slow-burning fire in the underbrush waiting for the right spark. I met Brooke when Daniel brought her home for the first time, back when he was still working as a mid-level manager at a tech firm down in the valley. She was sharp, ambitious, the kind of woman who turns heads with her confidence in her perfectly tailored outfits. At first, I thought she was good for him, pushing him to aim higher, to dream bigger than the quiet life we'd known growing up. But it didn't take long to see the cracks. She'd make these little comments, subtle at first, about my trailer being quaint, or how I could really use a new truck to replace that old Tacoma that's seen better days. Daniel would laugh it off, but I saw the way his eyes flickered, like he was embarrassed to have her see where he came from. The cabin up at Lake Tahoe, that was my pride and joy. I built it back in the 80s, board by board, with savings from my days running the sawmill. It wasn't fancy, just a solid log structure with a stone fireplace, big windows looking out over the water, and enough bedrooms for the whole family to pile in for holidays. When Daniel and Brooke got married, I gifted them the deed, or at least that's what they thought. Really, I set it up through the company, Callahan Timber Holdings. with a mortgage that let them feel like they were building equity while I quietly covered the gaps. The payments were high at first, but 2 years ago, when I saw Daniel struggling with the bills, Brooke's taste for luxury cars and designer clothes, eating into their savings, I restructured it, dropping the monthly hit without a word. They never asked questions. They just breathed a sigh of relief and kept spending. But Brooke, she started reshaping everything. The cabin got a makeover, marble countertops in the kitchen, a hot tub on the deck, fancy light fixtures that cost more than my entire monthly pension check. She'd host these weekend getaways with her country club crowd, posting pictures on social media of wine tastings and sunset toasts, always captioning them with something about living the dream. Daniel would tag along, smiling in the background, but I could see the strain in his eyes, the way his shoulders tensed when the credit card statements came in. And me? I was slowly phased out. First, it was no room for Grandpa at the summer barbecues because the guest list was full. Then, whispers to the grandkids about how I was getting too old for the long drive up the mountain roads. They'd still invite me for the odd dinner, but Brooke's comments got sharper. "Oh, Thomas, that old flannel shirt again? We could take you shopping if you want." Daniel never defended me. He'd just change the subject or look away. Thanksgiving was the breaking point. Sitting there at their dining table in the suburbs, the one they'd bought to impress her parents, watching my grandkids. Faces light up as they talked about the upcoming trip to the cabin, skiing, hot chocolate by the fire, building snowmen on the shore. And then Brooke drops the bomb, all smiles and sympathy, about space being limited, core family only. Her parents were flying in, you see, and they needed the extra rooms. I felt it like a punch to the chest. The way the room went quiet, the kids looking confused, Daniel avoiding my gaze like I was a stranger. I could have argued, could have reminded them who built that place. But I didn't. I just nodded, said I understood, and left before the pie was served. Driving home that night, the Tacoma rumbling over the familiar roads. I felt the anger settle in, cold and clear, like ice forming on the lake. By the time I got back to my trailer, the decision was made. Callahan Timber Holdings wasn't just a small sawmill. It was the heart of an empire I'd built quietly over 40 years. Those logging leases on the Ponderosa Pines? They'd funded everything. The cabin, the kids' college funds, even the down payment on Daniel's first house. But I'd kept it humble, living simple to teach him the value of hard work, not handouts. That night, I called my attorney and set the wheels in motion. The demand note was ready. All it needed was my say-so. And when that text came from Brooke 3 weeks later, the photo of them all cozy on the deck without me, that was the spark. I gave the word, exercise the clause. Let them feel the weight of their choices. Christmas morning, that phone call from Daniel. It was the first crack in their perfect world. His voice trembling, talking about the certified letter. The company name that meant nothing to him yet. Callahan Timber Holdings. I could picture him standing in their kitchen, the wrapping paper still scattered from the kids' gifts, staring at the paper like it was written in a foreign language. "Dad, we can't pay this," he pleaded. "The cabin, it's everything to us. The kids love it there." I let him ramble, let the panic build, then delivered that line about core family. It hung there between us, sharp as a blade. He broke down, begging for forgiveness, blaming Brooke, but I knew the truth. He'd let it happen. He'd chosen silence over standing up. Then Brooke's call, her fury boiling over the line. She ranted about how I was destroying the family, how cruel it was to do this over the holidays. But I waited, let her exhaust herself, then laid it out plain, the years of her snide remarks, the way she'd poisoned the grandkids against me, telling them I was too broke to fix the dock where we'd spent summers fishing together. "You wanted this place free and clear of me," I said. "Now it's yours to lose." The silence after that was deafening, like she'd finally run out of words. And that night, Daniel showing up unannounced. The demand letter crumpled in his fist. He looked like a man who'd aged 10 years in a day, his eyes swollen from crying. We stood there on the porch, the cold air biting at our faces. And he poured it out, the apologies, the regrets. "I should have stood up, Dad. I let her talk that way about you." I cut him short, reminding him of the choices he'd made, time and again. Then I told him to go home, to face Brooke with the truth, that the timber leases were mine, that I'd been the invisible hand keeping them afloat. His face when he realized, the shock, the dawning horror. "You own it all. Always have, son." He collapsed on the steps, sobbing into his hands, but I didn't offer comfort. This was his lesson, hard-earned. You picked your family, I said. Now live with it. And as I closed the door, leaving him there in the dark, I felt a quiet peace settle in, like the lake freezing over solid and still. But this is just the beginning of how it all unraveled. The real twist comes when Daniel confronts Brooke, when the full weight of the secrets comes crashing down. Stay tuned, because the revenge isn't just about the money, it's about reclaiming what's been taken for granted. If this is hitting home, drop a comment below. Have you ever had to teach a hard lesson to family? Like and subscribe for the next part, where things get even more intense. The next morning dawned cold and clear, the kind of winter day where your breath hangs in the air like smoke and every sound carries farther than it should. I woke early, as always, made my coffee black and strong, and sat at the small kitchen table, looking out the window at the frost glittering on the pines. The demand letter had been delivered. The clock was ticking. 30 days. Not a minute more. Around 9:30 the phone rang again. Daniel this time, voice hoarse like he hadn't slept. "Dad," he said, "Brooke's losing it. She's been on the phone with every banker she knows, trying to refinance, trying to get a bridge loan, anything. They laughed at her. Said the note is ironclad, no prepayment penalties, no grace period beyond what's already written. She's calling me useless, saying this is my fault for not standing up to you sooner." He paused, swallowed hard. "She's packing bags. Says if we're losing the cabin, she's not waiting around for the sheriff to show up with eviction papers. The kids are asking why mommy's crying and why we can't go skiing like we planned." I listened without interrupting. Let him feel every word land. Then he asked the question I'd been waiting for. "Dad, what is Callahan Timber Holdings?" "Really?" Because when I Googled it, nothing came up except some old incorporation records from the 70s. No website, no press releases. Just a P.O. box in Reno and a registered agent who won't answer calls. I took a slow sip of coffee, let the warmth spread through my chest. Then I said, "It's me, Daniel. It's always been me." Silence stretched so long I thought the line had dropped. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. "You mean you bought the mortgage? From the bank?" "No, son. I never sold it. When I transferred the deed to you and Brooke after the wedding, I kept the note in a shell company. Callahan Timber Holdings is the holding entity for everything. The sawmill that started it all. The 40,000 acres of timber leases. I bought piece by piece, starting in the late 80s when land was cheap and nobody wanted it. The mineral rights I quietly picked up when the big players were looking the other way. I structured it so you two could feel like owners without the full weight of the debt crushing you. I lowered the payments 2 years ago because I saw the credit card bills piling up. Saw Brooke's shopping sprees eating into what should have been your future. I thought maybe if I eased the pressure you'd both slow down, appreciate what you had. Instead, she just spent faster." He made a sound, half sob, half laugh. The kind that comes when reality finally punches through denial. "All this time, you were paying for half our life? More like 3/4 toward the end," I said. "But I never told you because I didn't want you thinking you owed me. I wanted you to build something real, not lean on handouts." Looks like that lesson didn't stick. "Dad," he choked out, "Brooke's parents are flying in tomorrow. They're talking about suing, saying it's predatory lending, elder abuse, some nonsense about undue influence. Her dad's already calling lawyers." "Let them," I said. "They'll find out quick that the note is clean. The transfers documented, every payment accounted for. And when they dig into Callahan Timber Holdings, they'll find the same thing you just found, nothing flashy. Just a quiet company that's been profitable for 40 years. Profitable enough to buy back its own paper when the bank wanted to offload a high-balance residential mortgage during a restructuring sweep." Another long pause. Then, softer, "The kids. They're going to lose the place where they learned to fish, where we built that tree fort, where you taught me how to split firewood. Brooke keeps saying we can rent something in Tahoe Village next winter. Something smaller, but the kids are asking for Grandpa Thomas. They don't understand why you're not coming." I felt that one hit, right under the ribs. The grandkids. Sweet little faces, gap-toothed smiles. The way they'd run to hug my legs when I pulled up in the Tacoma. For a second, the cold justice I'd been nursing all these weeks flickered. But then I remembered Brooke's voice at Thanksgiving. The casual cruelty of core family only. The way she'd trained those same kids to think their grandfather was too poor, too old, Too embarrassing to include. They'll be fine, I told him. Kids are resilient. They'll make new memories somewhere else. Maybe in a rental condo with thin walls and no dock. Maybe they'll learn what it feels like when someone decides. You're not worth including. Dad, go talk to your wife, Daniel. Tell her everything. Tell her the Tacoma. She mocked has a title free and clear. Because I paid cash for it in 94. Tell her the flannel shirts she sneered at were worn by the man who quietly kept her dream house from foreclosure. Tell her parents the truth too. Let them see who really built the life they've been enjoying. I hung up before he could beg again. The rest of the day passed quiet. I split some firewood out back. The rhythmic thwack of the maul against the rounds steadying my breathing. Each swing reminded me why I'd kept things hidden so long. Hard work. Patience. Building slow and strong. Not flashy. Not loud. Just solid. Around 4 o'clock, my attorney texted. Acceleration notice acknowledged by their counsel. Refinance attempts denied by 3 major lenders already. They're scrambling. Expect contact from a family lawyer tomorrow. I texted back one word. Good. That evening, Brooke called again. No screaming this time. Her voice was tight, controlled. The tone of someone who's finally realized the ground is shifting under her feet. Thomas, she said, using my first name like we were suddenly equals. We need to talk. Face to face. The kids are asking for you. Daniel's a mess. My parents are here and they're concerned. Can we come to your place tomorrow? Just to sit down, explain things, find a way forward? I let her words hang there for a beat. No, Brooke. You wanted core family only at the cabin. You got it. Now deal with your core family without dragging me into the cleanup. She tried the tears then, soft and practiced. Thomas, please. I was wrong. I said things I shouldn't have. I was stressed, the holidays, the pressure. I never meant to hurt you. The kids need their grandfather. Don't punish them for my mistakes. The kids, I repeated slowly. Funny how they only need me when the cabin's on the line. When it was just summer weekends and fishing trips. They were fine hearing you say Grandpa's too cheap to fix the dock. Silence again. Then, quieter. What do you want, Thomas? Money? An apology on video? Public humiliation? Name it. Just don't take the house. I want what you took from me. I said. Dignity. Respect. A seat at the table that wasn't offered as charity. You spent years making sure I knew my place. Outside, looking in. Now you're outside looking in. Feels different, doesn't it? She started to speak, but I cut her off. Tell Daniel I'll be at the cabin on January 25th, noon. Alone. He can meet me there to sign the quitclaim deed, transferring everything back. After that, the note gets satisfied, the lien released. You keep the house, the kids keep their memories. And we never speak again unless it's through lawyers. That's the deal. Take it or leave it. I hung up. The line went dead. But I could picture her face. Pale, lips pressed thin, eyes darting as she calculated the cost of pride versus losing it all. I knew she'd take it. People like Brooke always do when the mask finally cracks. The next few days blurred. Daniel texted once. We're coming. Kids are staying with Brooke's sister. Just you and me at the cabin? Just us, I replied. And on the 25th, under a sky heavy with the promise of more snow, I drove the Tacoma up the mountain road I'd driven 1,000 times. The cabin looked the same from the outside, warm lights in the windows. Smoke curling from the chimney Daniel had probably lit that morning. But it felt different. Smaller somehow. Less mine. I parked, stepped out, boots crunching on the fresh powder. Daniel was waiting on the porch, hands in his pockets, breath fogging the air. No Brooke. No parents. Just my son, looking older than his years. Dad, he said. I nodded toward the door. Inside, we sat at the big pine table I'd built myself. The same table where we'd eaten pancakes on Sunday mornings. Where I'd taught him to play chess. Where Brooke had once sat and told me my stories were cute but outdated. He slid a folder across to me. Quitclaim deed. Signed. Notarized. Everything reverts to Callahan. Timber Holdings, meaning me. I opened it, scanned the pages. Clean. Why no fight? I asked. He looked down at his hands. Because you're right. I let it happen. I let her talk about you like you were nothing. I laughed at the jokes, changed the subject when it got uncomfortable. I thought if I kept quiet, we'd all stay comfortable. But comfort isn't worth losing your father over. He met my eyes then, red-rimmed but steady. I'm sorry, Dad. For all of it. I didn't say I forgave him. Not yet. Forgiveness isn't a switch you flip. It's earned slow, like seasoning wood. Instead, I said, the lien releases tomorrow. You keep the cabin. But the leases, the company, the real money, that stays separate. You want back in someday, you'll have to build your way. No more free rides. He nodded, throat working. Understood. We sat in silence a while, the fire popping in the hearth. Outside, snow started falling again, soft and steady, covering the tracks I'd made on the way in. When I stood to leave, he followed me to the door. Dad, can I call you sometime? Not about money. Just to talk? I looked at him, really looked. Saw the boy who'd once run to me with skinned knees. The man who'd let himself get lost. Saw the regret, raw and real. Maybe, I said. We'll see. I walked to the Tacoma, climbed in, started the engine. As I pulled away, I glanced in the rearview. Daniel was still on the porch, watching me go, hands shoved deep in his coat pockets against the cold. The road wound down the mountain, snowflakes swirling in the headlights. For the first time in months, the anger felt lighter. Not gone, but not burning quite so hot. I didn't know if we'd ever be close again. Maybe we would. Maybe we wouldn't. But the cabin was still there. The leases were still mine. And the Tacoma kept rolling, dents and all, carrying me home. If that ending gave you chills, or made you cheer, drop a comment and tell me. Would you have given them the house back? Or let them lose it completely? Smash that like button if Thomas's quiet strength hit different. Subscribe so you don't miss the next revenge tale that leaves you speechless. And turn on notifications because these stories only get better. Thanks for riding this one out with me. See you in the next one.